Welcome to the Finding Joy in Your Home podcast. I am your host, Jamie Balmain, and this is the podcast where we blend deeply theological topics with thoroughly practical application, all for God's glory. Hey friends, welcome back to the Finding Joy in Your Home podcast. I'm really excited you're joining me today. We're talking about grocery budgets and really actual tips and tricks on the ground for how to work around your grocery budget, but still feed your family well. That's something that a lot of us are struggling with right now. And in the last 6 months or so, we've had several topics on the podcast revolving around this. And the reason is it is such a big topic right now. It's such a pain point for so many of us. So we're going to dive in and really cover some different things. I'm going to be talking about some of your guys' questions and topics that you guys wanted to chat about that you shared on Instagram a few weeks ago with me. So this is going to be really fun. If you are watching this or now listening to this over on YouTube, I just did want to say that today we do not have a video. We are in Pennsylvania right now. My grandma passed away last week and we had to hurry up with 2 days notice and head to Pennsylvania. So I did not have time to actually record this podcast at home before we left. So I am in my aunt's upstairs room recording this right now. So we don't have a video today. But we still have a really good topic that we're going to talk about. It's going to be really fun. So we're going to just dive right into that. You will hear from our two sponsors for today. We have Happy Mammoth and Air Doctor. And I did want to give you real quick announcement. So as you're listening to this, it is already March. And this month we are launching an incredible secret new project. It's launching March 11th. I have been sharing sneak peeks over on Instagram. We've got another new sneak peek coming today, and we've got major sneak peeks in the next couple of days that are really going to reveal really the scope of what this project is. We're changing up and shaking up our business in major ways this year with this new project, and it's really awesome. So come on over to Instagram, to our community. You can kind of find those sneak peeks. I am just Jamie Balmain on Instagram. You can come find me. And March 11th is when it's launching. You're going to know all the details in this next week, which is totally crazy. Okay, so we're just going to jump into this. Okay, so I asked on Instagram what people's current pain points right now are with grocery budgets, with shopping, with trying to cook healthy food. And I got some really good suggestions of where people are getting stuck. So we're going to kind of talk through some of these things that have helped me. And the thing is, everything is more expensive right now. We know that, right? So I read some statistic. I don't know where they pulled this from, but I read some statistic that households are needing to make $700 more, or they're spending $700 more a month than this time last year or 2 years ago or whatever the statistic is. But basically, $700 more a month on our necessities, on things that we live with. But our incomes haven't risen. Our incomes have not risen to meet that amount. And so I think there's so much. I mean, so many of us know, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably struggling in this area. Everything is more expensive. When we just go to the dentist, their prices are higher. When we're groceries, clothing, everything is having to increase. And as a small business owner, I understand that. This is not corporate greed. I mean, I'm sure there's some of that out there, but for by and large, it's because everything across the board is rising in price. So thankfully, in our business, we have not had to raise our prices yet on our print products. We're starting to see some prices kind of stable out in some areas. So I'm hoping in the near future, we're not going to have to raise our prices, but we do have friends running small businesses who've had to, as a small business, you work off such razor thin margins that when your paper all of a sudden goes up in price, when your printer starts charging a little bit more, all these little steps along the way, shipping costs have been going up. Every little touch point in this, manufacturing process, which for us in our store is pretty short. We're not going through 40 steps of manufacturing or paper producing or whatever you call it. But every step of the way, it goes up a few cents. It goes up $1. And that really adds up. And that's why even, as a small business, you realize, oh yeah, maybe we need to increase our prices by just a couple of dollars. But then what happens is everywhere, all across the board, everything's going up a couple of dollars or more. And it's such drastic increases that a lot of us are struggling. And one of those areas we really, really see it is at the grocery store. And I know all of us have felt that, where you're like, wait a minute, I filled this cart, or the cart's half full. how was it that much money when I got to check out? And so what it's been doing for me is it's really been making me reevaluate what we're spending money on, because we don't have an unlimited grocery budget. I can't just go into the store and spend as much as I want. I can't just load up my cart and not care what the price is. If you are in that situation, praise God for that. Praise God for that you can feed your family like that. That's awesome. That's a wonderful blessing. We are not in that position. I have to be very careful with what we are spending, right? I think like most of you probably listening are in that position. And so what it has done for me is it's made me have to reevaluate what we're buying, how we're cooking. And on one hand, that can feel really, really frustrating. And so I hear from a lot of people who are just really frustrated because they're trying to eat healthier, or they're trying to buy better options, or they're used to just buying what they normally buy. And all of a sudden, they don't have $700 extra a month or you realize like this is just going to keep going with the pricing. So we got to figure something out. So what I really want to encourage you is if you are feeling in this kind of spot where you're feeling really frustrated, you're feeling really down with your grocery budget, with food at the grocery store, what I want to encourage you is to just get creative and recognize that running a household is actually a lot of work. Running a household, being a good steward of your finances, a good steward of your household, it does take a lot of work. And that's what we see like in Proverbs 31. We see a woman who is very good at her job. And I know people are like, don't talk about Proverbs 31. But look, she is in scripture. And whether or not she was a real person or not, those principles are still really good to look at. She was a hard worker, and the creativity that she put into running her household, of thinking for the future, of thinking through winter, how are we going to get through winter? What do we need to do? She was very creative with her job. And what we need to do is we need to look and say, this is a current restriction I have. This is a current limitation. Instead of just being whiny about it and like complaining and feeling like, oh, I can't buy what I want to buy, let's get creative. Let's look at this as a unique challenge, a unique opportunity, and still remember that even if our grocery budget goes down to the studs and we're just buying white flour and white sugar and making our own very simple bread, and like if that's all we had to eat, we can be so incredibly thankful to the Lord. And yet most of us are not in that place. We're still buying food. We still can buy a cartload of food, but it's just maybe not the standard we want or the quality that we want, or, you know, whatever kind of you're struggling with at this point. And so what I've been trying to return to again and again with grocery budget, as I have had to lower my standards in areas, is to still thank the Lord for food. Thank the Lord for what he has given us, to realize that it is by his sovereign hand that I have the grocery budget that I have today, that I'm dealing with these issues at the grocery store right now. And by me grumbling and complaining, I'm directly grumbling and complaining against the Lord, because it is what he has given us today. So I can look at our grocery budget, I can look at what we have, and I can thank the Lord for that. And I can look at it with a different perspective and say, how can I get creative with this? How can I look at this differently? How can I figure out some new things that I need to make? And guess what, you guys? It might be a hard process. It might mean you need to start making some more things at home. And that's going to take some sacrifice of time. And yet, if we just approach this with a terrible attitude, I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. I don't want to do more work. Then yeah, we're going to have a bad attitude and it's going to be horrible. So let's look at this in a positive light and say, how can I get creative with this? How can I serve my family well? How can I be a good manager of my home? And how can I think outside the box a little bit? How can I look at this in a creative way and then do the best I have, the best that I can? And this is what I say all the time, is do the best you can with what you have, which in this case is your grocery budget, and trust the Lord with the rest. So I cannot buy. My standards, you guys, would be like, if I truly bought and ate the way that we wanted, I mean, it would be all organic. It would be all local. It would all be, you know, the best types of meat. Everything would be from scratch. You know, if I had unlimited time, you know, all these things, right? That would be my standard. Well, guess what? That standard is not realistic. And so I can praise the Lord with the budget I have, with the time I have, with the resources I have, and trust the Lord with the rest. So this is not about being a perfectionist, but at the same time, I don't think we just go, oh, well, we're going to eat McDonald's 4 times a day and not going to worry about it. No, God has called us to be good stewards of our body, of our family's nutrition. And it's a good thing to want to invest in that for our families. It has very real consequences on this earth with energy, with hormones, with sicknesses, with diseases. We do need to take our nutrition seriously. And yet we hold it with a loose hand, knowing that even if we eat McDonald's 4 times a day, God is still sovereign, and we kind of coexist in that medium. Right? So I do want to encourage you that it can be hard right now. I have been buying a lot more white flour, and I went through, I don't know, like 8 years where I never bought white flour or white sugar because I just gotten into a really good place. We grind our own grains. I have alternative sweeteners or, natural sweeteners that we used. And I just was in a really, really good place. I was slowly elevating our food. The more I made from scratch, the more I was able to save, the more I was able to get into good rhythms. And then all of a sudden, even those foods started getting so much more expensive. And so there's been times where I've just had to be really strategic with cutting back the grocery budget and doing some more white flour for the kids, especially. And, just kind of making it work and then just completely trusting the Lord in that. And so, and whatever, some of you are like, absolutely cannot have white flour. It's not about what specifically you're buying or eating, but getting creative in your situation on what you can do and trusting the Lord in that, right? Okay, so that's my first thing. That's what I want to really enter this conversation with. All right, we're going to take a brief pause for our first sponsor for today, which is Happy Mammoth. All right, Happy Mammoth is actually a brand new sponsor for our podcast, and I'm really, really excited. When they reached out, I'm really picky, you guys, with supplements, and so I say no to like 99% of supplements because they're just not worth it. And so I looked up Happy Mammoth, and I was so excited to be able to have a hormone supplement company to be able to share with you guys. So Happy Mammoth is the company that created the hormone Harmony. So it's dedicated to making women's lives easier, and that means using only science-backed ingredients that have been proven to work for women. And they make no compromise when it comes to quality, and it shows. So this is where if you have any sort of hormone issues, you need to go check out their different supplements and things that they have. So one thing, you guys have probably heard me talk about this before. One thing that the Hormone Harmony has, and they sent me a bottle. I'm so excited about this. Hormone Harmony contains adaptogens. Adaptogens are something I've been taking for years, and they help your body respond to stress, and they're incredible for your hormones. And they're herbs. They're just herbs. There's nothing like weird about them. And the beauty about adaptogens is that they help the body adapt to any stressors like chaotic hormonal changes that happen naturally throughout a woman's life. So Hormone Harmony isn't just, it's also for women, but it's also for menopause. So if you have any symptoms of hormonal imbalances, it is perfect. So especially a lot of times people will ask for things to help with menopause, and Hormone Harmony works for menopause as well, which is awesome. So the biggest benefit that people say from taking it is feeling like yourself again. And that's what women mention over and over in their reviews. There are over 16,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. So you can go check it out. They also have the amount of things that they have on there is awesome. You have to go look at all their different options that they have, but people are always asking for things to help with hormones. And this is a fantastic company to go check out. We got a whole box of their different stuff, which is so fun. So for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use coupon code HOME at checkout. So you can get 15% off your entire first order. So you can order a couple things, check it out, try it out at happymammoth.com and use promo code HOME at checkout for 15% off. And if you check it out, if you try it out, you'll have to let me know what you think. Okay, so I'm going to move into some specific questions. So Katie asked, I really want to move towards more organic/better brands, but budget is tight. Okay. So yeah, this is a hard one. I have not been buying nearly as much organic in the last 2 years. And again, I absolutely trust the Lord in that. I know that the meat and stuff that we're buying is not as good. And yet it's the best I can do. And so I 100% turn that trust over to the Lord. Then I'm not going to worry about it at all. It's what I can do right now. So if you are in that season where you're really struggling because you can't buy the things you want, turn that trust over to the Lord 100%. And then look for some ways that you can get creative. So meat is one in particular that I do try to buy the better options when I can. And that's something that I will I would like to spend more money in that area and less money in other areas. There's other things like oats. So I'd really try, we go through a lot of oats. We eat so many oats. We do a lot of oatmeal and stuff like that. And so I really try, oats are an important one to me because oats are like soaked in glyphosate, normal oats. They're one of those really, really high ones. So like Quaker oats are like terrible. And again, if that's what we could buy, then I would eat those and praise the Lord. But I'm looking for ways to buy them that are not. So if you're going to get an organic option, then they're automatically not going to have the glyphosate. And so oats are one that I will try to spend a little bit more to get that better option. There's other items that just don't matter as much. And so if they're organic, if they're not going to have the same issue, right? And so that's something that we really want to look at, is starting to figure out what are the things that you eat a lot. So the things that we eat on a regular basis. Jason and I drink a lot of coffee. We switched to decaf last summer. So we only drink decaf coffee now. And decaf coffee is one of those that I would vastly prefer an organic option. There's really, really big differences in between organic and non-organic coffee. And if we had a coffee, if I had one coffee once a month, I honestly wouldn't worry about it. I'd be like, whatever, it doesn't matter. We drink 2 or 3 cups a day. And so at that level, I am more concerned about the quality of it because of how much we're drinking, right? And so with coffee too, with decaf coffee, traditional decaf coffee is processed using chemicals. So again, if we stop by a Starbucks, I'll just get a decaf there. I'm not going to worry about it, even though they use a chemical process for their decaf. But at home, what we're drinking every day, I really want to make sure that we're getting a Swiss water processed, which means it's decaffeinated using water. And so it's certain things like that where you're like, we have to pick and choose what is worth spending in that budget. And so if you're on a tight budget, you're not going to be able to buy everything at the quality that you want. So for example, at Costco, there are 2 different kinds of chicken. They've got there might be more, I don't know. They've got their organic line, which is much more expensive. And then they have their non-organic, but their non-organic is air chilled. So, which means if it's air chilled, it's not dipped in chlorine. And even Costco's organic chicken is not incredible. It's not free range. It's not a local farm where you can go pick up your chicken. It's still not amazing. And so when you look between those two, I will happily just buy the air chilled chicken, save a ton knowing that there's actually, it's not dipped in chlorine and that it's got a much better process there for that. So, and knowing these things just really takes research. It takes okay, look at what you eat the most of. We eat ground beef 4 times a week. Okay, let's figure out, let's research different kinds of ground beef. And when does it really matter? Do I really need organic grass-fed? Can I cut back here? And really start to research. And some of this is going to just depend on what your family eats a lot, what allergies you have, where are issues. I think looking at things that are sprayed with glyphosate, that's a really big area to start with. Trying to get that out of your system is going to be a really, really big thing. That's really, really impactful. That's more important to me than even other pesticides. And so really starting to do that research and start with one thing at a time. So we eat a ton of oats. I'm going to start researching oats and I'm going to kind of dive into this and see if I can figure out a better option. And there's certain things that I know are not great, but we don't have an alternative that's affordable. And so we trust the Lord. Right? So that's my advice there, is really look at what are you eating a lot of and start with that research first and start moving some of those over. And for me, a lot of times what I find is that if I can make this item from scratch at home, I can make it much healthier and much cheaper. So bread is one. You start researching bread, and whether you're gluten-free or not, just any kind of decent bread is going to cost an arm and a leg right now. It's going to be so incredibly expensive to find ones that don't have high fructose corn syrup, that don't have loads of sugar, that are actually made with whole grains. You're just going to have a really hard time, and they're going to be really, really expensive. And so figuring out how to make your own bread, not everybody wants to do that. That's fine. Not everybody eats bread. But if that's something that your family goes through a lot and you want high quality bread, start there. Learning how to make your own bread. You save boatloads of money, and it's way, way healthier. And it's really not that hard once you get it down. I know it feels daunting at first, but really thinking through these areas of where is my time and my money worth it? Because certain things are not worth it to you to make from scratch because they're going to just take too long. You could buy the equivalent for cheaper. So really trying to figure out where that sweet spot, I think some of that does just take kind of trial and error. Okay, this next question is going to get me in trouble with some of you, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree, okay? If you don't agree with me on this, that's completely fine. We can still be friends. Did you guys know that? Okay, so Jenna says finding affordable, quality fruits and vegetables during the winter and early spring. And someone else asked something about, a bunch of people said fresh produce for sure. Someone said fresh fruit. We want them to eat all the fruit, but it gets pricey. Okay, Jamie's going to jump on her soapbox for a minute. So again, if you disagree with me, that's completely fine, but do your own research. All right, so we have been told that we need to eat a gazillion servings of fruits and vegetables a day. That's the only healthy thing you can have. Fruits and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. I think a lot of this is also impacted by the vegan community. Meat is not good. Fruits and vegetables. That's it. Grains have become evil. So fruits and vegetables is the only thing that's healthy to eat. I'm obviously exaggerating, but I do think that that is a lot of what we're told. And so the thing is, we will try. I saw this lovely gal on Instagram who feeds her family very well, and they have 2 high incomes. And so they make a lot of money and they're able to afford this. So no shade on her. That's amazing. But she shares what they eat every day. And it is a lot berries, which I'm a little jealous because I love berries. I'd eat them all day, every day if I could. But they'll go to Costco and buy like 6 things of raspberries at once, even through the winter, even when it's off season. And they have all this, they'll do all these, fancier fruit, more expensive fruit. Raspberries are expensive. And they serve all these and it's amazing. It's amazing. However, that's ridiculously not anywhere near our budget. But I also think that if we really look at the way that our food is grown, the way that God gave us seasons of food, that I don't think we're supposed to eat. I don't think our bodies are designed to eat fresh fruit 3 times a day all year long. Because we have become so used to our grocery store where we can go get pineapple in the middle of winter that's shipped in from Ecuador, and we've got fresh raspberries all year long. Doesn't matter. Fresh, you can get strawberries. You go to Costco, they have strawberries all year long. I'm sure they're being shipped from somewhere warm. But we're very spoiled. We have grocery stores where we can go in, we can literally get anything that we want. And often I think we get stuck in a rut of it doesn't matter what's in season. We're just going to the grocery store and buying the fruit and the vegetables that we're used to. And so what I do, especially because we've been gardening a lot, one of the things that we're really our 10-year goal is to grow 95% of our produce. We're nowhere near that. We're in baby step mode, but that's something we'd really like to do. Well, when you look at that, you have to all of a sudden realize, well, I'm never growing pineapple. I'm never growing lots of things. There's lots of fruit and vegetables I just would never have access to if we didn't fly them in from Ecuador. And that's fine. I'm thankful that we can, get strawberries when we want them. But when you really start looking seasonally, you look at what you can grow locally, and you look at strawberries are in season for about 3 weeks a year. 3 weeks a year, you have fresh strawberries. Glut yourself on strawberries, get yourself sick, eat all the strawberries. But then if you don't preserve them into a jam or a jelly or something, or freeze them, do something with them, you're not having strawberries all year long. You're not. Same with any fruit. Apples, pears, peaches, grapes. There's a very limited, and some of those have longer growing season. Strawberries, berries are very, very short. But I don't think that we were designed until modern refrigerators, until modern, flying stuff in from Ecuador, modern grocery stores. I don't think we were designed to eat 5 servings of fresh fruit every single day all year long. I just don't think that we have to do that. In fact, fruit has such a high sugar content that we get very focused on we have to have all this fresh fruit. And I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary for getting our vitamins. A lot of times we think all the nutrients and vitamins are only in produce. And a big part of that is because we've completely shunned grains. We've completely in our society said grains are evil, and we don't realize in a whole grain, in a spelt, in something like that, the sheer amount of B vitamins. Just the plethora of nutrients. You literally could survive off of grains. You could survive off of beans and grains, and it would have all of the nutrients you need, really. So there are certain things we need some extra vitamin C. And, I'm not saying we don't need fruits and vegetables. We do, but are the grains. Grains are such an incredible, and I mean, they're grown in the ground just alongside vegetables. So it's funny that we get like, grains are so bad, but anyway, well, I don't need to be on this soapbox for long. I'm sorry. I digress. But we get into this, like we have to have all of these fresh fruits and vegetables all the time. And I just don't think that it's quite as a crisis that we get our nutrients from that versus things like whole grains, even meat. Ground beef can have really good sources of certain nutrients. And so we do need to look at a very well-rounded diet. I think it's really, really helpful to look at what our ancestors ate. I am not talking paleo. I'm not saying what did the cavemen eat? That's ridiculous. But what did every person in all of humanity eat, dating back to Adam and Eve, dating back to the times of Noah? What did we eat until 100 years ago? And really look at how did God design our rhythms? And so I just think people get really, really, really stressed that you're eating enough fruits and vegetables because we think it's the only way to get good nutrients. And yet, if you didn't preserve it yourself for the year ahead, you didn't have fresh fruits and vegetables all year long. And now, obviously, that can cause problems. We had people on ships getting scurvy because they didn't have enough vitamin C. Obviously, there's nutritional deficiencies. There's things we need to look at, and praise God for fruits and vegetables. There's ways that we can preserve it. There's things that we can get. So, but I just think we get so freaked out that we have to have, especially with fruit, we think we need so much fruit. I just really don't think we do. So we're super simple with fruit in our house. We buy apples and bananas. That's what we buy. I'll buy other stuff when it's in season. We preserve. So we bought like 100 pounds of strawberries when they were in season in June. And I preserved those. We made jams and jellies and stuff out of those. I will buy frozen fruit sometimes, especially at Costco. Like we like to do smoothies and stuff throughout the summer. But I'm not buying I will only buy grapes when they're on sale. We don't buy, I'll get strawberries. We'll get strawberries. Like Costco will have great deals on strawberries throughout the summer. And when those are in season, I'm buying a couple every time I go to Costco because we do love them. I've got those fresh ones when they're on sale, when they're super cheap. But other than that, we're buying fruit only when it's in season, only when it's on sale. And then for the rest of the year, we have apples and bananas. I'm just really not stressed that they need to eat grapes every day. And I think we need to chill a little bit on the fruit front. So if you disagree with me, that's fine. Go buy all your fruit. That's okay. But so what my tip with produce is to look for stuff that's on season. Learn what's in season. I love artichokes, for example. Love artichokes. I mean, I would buy those weekly, but when they're not in season, they're quadruple the price. They're ridiculous. They're small. They're puny. They don't even taste that good. So when artichokes are in season, I buy them all the time. And then I don't really have them the rest of the year. Same with pomegranates. We love pomegranates. And when they're in the middle of winter and they are in season, oh my goodness, we just buy flats of them when we can find them for a good price. The rest of the year, they're ridiculously expensive. I don't buy them. So really looking at things that are in season. Potatoes, carrots, onions, those store all year long really well. You're always going to be able to find good prices on those. Tomatoes, we'll buy tomatoes throughout the year, but that is one of our goals, is to grow enough tomatoes to can ourselves. Those you can find pretty decent throughout the year, but really just looking for things that are in season, knowing what's in season, and then you can find really good prices on those. So really looking at what can you get in season right now that's going to really help the grocery budget. All right, we're going to take a brief pause for our second sponsor for today's episode, which is Air Doctor. All right, Air Doctor has become one of my favorite things. Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors and take about 20,000 breaths a day. I really hope I don't spend 90% of my time indoors, but it's probably true. I need to get outside more. But that's a crazy statistic. We take 20,000 breaths a day. 90% of that time is spent indoors. And according to the EPA, indoor air is 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air, and in some cases up to 100 times more polluted. So data shows that air pollution is responsible for nearly 7 million premature deaths globally, which is just mind-boggling. And so Air Doctor is a really, really incredible air purifier. So I wanted an air purifier for years, but it was one of those things that I just kind of kept dragging my feet. I don't want to spend the money. It feels like an expensive thing. Do we really need it? You kind of go back and forth. And both of my sisters had an Air Doctor for years. They had mold issues in their home. One of them with their kids, actually both of them had mold at one point. So the Air Doctor became a necessity for them. And I was like, oh, I really want to get one. We finally got an Air Doctor. And day one, day two, I realized how helpful it is. I always say this is just like my water purifier. It started kicking on all throughout the day. And you're like, oh my gosh, like the amount of use you get out of it is staggering. And you don't even think about it. So we went on a 3-week road trip last year in our RV. We brought our air doctor with us. So the air doctor is really fantastic. It filters out 99.99% of dangerous contaminants and allergens, such as pollen, pet dander, dust mite, mold, and even bacteria and viruses, so your lungs don't have to. So if you're going through a crazy sickness season like we have, I finally just ordered our first filter replacement for the air doctor. You don't have to replace them very often, but ours had really gotten to the point where we needed to. And we've been so sick the last 2 months. So I finally ordered one and we've got our air doctor running again. I don't know why it took so long. But that's amazing to be able to filter all of that out of your air. Also, it features whisper jet fans. So it's 30% quieter than ordinary air purifiers. I don't know if other ones are super loud, but ours is the air doctor is so quiet. Like you barely hear it. It is literally just like a little fan will kick on every once in a while. I mean, and it's not like a vacuum or anything like that. All right. So the amazing thing is that Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money back guarantee. So if you don't love it, just send it back for a refund minus shipping. You can head to airdoctorpro.com, use promo code HOME at checkout. And depending on the model that you choose, they have a whole wide range of models you can pick. You'll get up to 39% off or up to $300 off. So it's exclusive to podcast customers. You're also going to receive a free 3-year warranty on any unit, which is an additional $84 value. So you can lock in this special offer by going to airdoctorpro.com, airdoctorpro.com. Use promo code HOME at checkout to get up to 39% off, which is really awesome. All right, let's get back to the episode. And I think as Americans with our modern grocery system, we're not used to having to do that. We just want to walk into the grocery store with our list of our meals that we just pulled without thinking anything about the season. And we just want to go in and buy all the produce that we want for those recipes or for what we normally, we want raspberries, we're getting raspberries. Again, if you're in the position to do that, go for it. But when you're really trying to work on the budget, you need to be looking at what's in season, planning your meals, especially around those vegetables. Planning your meals. I don't really plan meals around fruit, but planning your meals around vegetables. What's in season? What can we get? What can we use? And really looking at it from that standpoint, and then realizing if your kids don't have 7 different varieties of fruit in each day, that's also 100% completely fine. Like they're fine. They're going to get their nutrients. You don't need to be buying all the expensive fruit all day, every day, all throughout the year in order to have a well-rounded diet that's got all of those nutrients in it. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because I do think we get super stressed with the fruit, especially. Okay, this next question is great. Sarah says, doing too much bulk with only 3 to feed is hard. Okay, so this is something I talk about a lot, is when you can buy in bulk, you can save a ton of money. And a lot of times people will be like, I can't shop at Costco because it's only my husband and we can't buy bulk because there's only a few of us. And the thing is, you absolutely can. Your bulk just looks different than my bulk. Your bulk is not buying 50 pounds of stuff and a gallon of maple syrup at once. And I mean, actually you can, because it'll store forever. But your bulk doesn't have to look the same as my bulk. And in fact, I would say they're very similar because my bulk 25-pound bag of spelt, we will eat through in a month. That's not actually crazy bulk for us. I'm not buying 500 pounds at once that would actually last a year. And so I want to encourage you that even when it was just Jason and I, before we had kids, I shopped at Costco. I shopped at Sam's Club because there are so many things that you can still get that are going to save well, that are easy to get. You can absolutely buy their bulk meat, put half of it in the freezer. Some of the produce, they're 15-pound bag of carrots. You're probably not going to go through those in time. But maybe you really like carrots. Their potatoes maybe, but the potatoes will last a long time. So some of the produce may not be as helpful, but even some of their apples and stuff they're not that giant, right? So really look and see what they have, because so much of their dried goods, their frozen things, so much of this can be stored so easily for later. And so I really would look at, what is your definition of bulk? Is bulk buying 50 pounds of stuff? I can't do that. Or is bulk going to Costco and you buy the big tub of coconut oil? it's going to take you a year to get through, but that's okay because it still is saving you so much money. So I want to encourage you in that bulk front that there are so many ways that you can still save money doing bulk. You don't have to, it doesn't mean buying ridiculously huge amounts for your family or having your freezer or your fridge completely stuffed full. You may not buy everything that we do in bulk, but you still can. There are still things that you can get because if you go, okay, so like this is a good example. Our family really loves brown basmati rice. It's our favorite rice. It's the only one that I have bought for like 14 years. Thankfully, it's more popular now, so you can find it in a lot of places. But if you were to go, you can't find brown basmati very often. You can find white basmati. Brown basmati has a better flavor. It's better than white. But the brown basmati, if you were to go to like Whole Foods or Sprouts doesn't actually carry it. Oh, maybe they do. Maybe in like their little section. If you were going to go to like a health food store, because it's a lot of times the only place you can find it, you're going to be paying $5 or $6 a pound for this rice. So if you're thinking, well, we don't do bulk because we're only a family of 3 and that little bag of rice is all we need for a couple of weeks or a month or whatever, you're still paying $5 or $6 a pound. Whereas if you get the 25-pound bag, which by the way, you can store in a single bucket, it's not actually nearly as much food as it probably sounds. That rice will last for a couple of years and you're getting it for like $1 a pound, right? Like it's a huge, huge difference. And so when you're going to the grocery store to just buy that one little pound, the one little pound of black beans, the one little thing, and you're doing that every single week because you think, I don't need bulk. We don't have that many people. You're ending up spending so much more per pound. So much more per pound than if you bought the 10 pounds of beans or even the 25 pounds of beans. Yeah, those are going to last you a couple of years, but the amount of savings over time, if you look at different products like that, ends up becoming an absolutely huge, you end up saving so much money then at that point. Okay, this is another great one because I hear this a lot. Finding out about several new allergies is a challenge. Want to cut back convenience items. All right, so Amanda asked that. So something that I think people with allergies sometimes can get a little like, woe is me. Like, I can't find anything. Everything's so expensive. And I understand that. Totally understand that. If you go to the store and try to buy stuff without dairy, without gluten, without, I have a friend who can't have corn or soy. And so she's like, I can't buy anything. But the thing is, when you're making your own stuff, so getting into the habit of making things that work well for you, then it doesn't matter. Your allergies don't really matter then. So I know some people who have a soy allergy and I'm like, look, we don't eat any soy. We don't have an allergy, but I don't eat any soy. I think soy is terrible for you. Processed soy anyway, especially for boys. So I don't buy anything that has soy oil in it when I can avoid it. And so you can get really, really creative with what you make. But when you find out you have a new allergy, it can be really hard because you realize, oh, all these things have this allergy in it and it's so overwhelming. And that's where I think learning how to cook things yourself makes a huge difference. Now, what I want to encourage you though, is you can make really simple things. So I just saw this Instagram reel the other day and it was cool. I mean, they were probably tasted great, but this gal was making, her family has some sort of allergies. I don't remember what they were. So she was making like allergy-free goldfish crackers for her kids, which was really cute. But they were a labor of love. I mean, these took forever. And then she had this little tiny batch of goldfish crackers, which was cute. But like my kids would eat that in like 3.2 seconds, right? They'd be gone. So certain things to me are 100% not worth my time to make. So those could be a fun little treat or something that you make, but I'm not making those goldfish crackers on a weekly basis because mama doesn't have time for that. I am, however, making 4 dozen muffins because those I can whip up in like 10 minutes. And then we've got 4 dozen muffins for, literally 10 minutes. It takes like 5 minutes a batch. Dump them in, mix it, put it in the oven, you've got 2 dozen. Then do the same thing with another kind. So we'll make pumpkin muffins all the time. And the thing is, you can make them 100% allergy free. You get to use the oil that you want. There's no additives in it. You get to use the flour that you want. Yes, you absolutely can make great muffins that are gluten free. You can use ancient grains, so many different options. So there's so much that you can do that, like, you can make dairy free ones. You can make them so easily customizable. And you make a bunch of muffins, you've got incredible snacks for your kids. I never thought about muffins as like a healthy food because you think of like a muffin you get at Starbucks. Like it's white flour and sugar and like, you're like, it's like a dessert, right? You can make really, really, really healthy muffins from home that taste incredible. Muffins are one that I'm like, every family with kids should make muffins because they're so easy. And like, those are snacks. I don't buy processed snacks just because they're so ridiculously expensive. Even the crap ones. And then to buy the healthy ones are ridiculous. Like there's no way I could afford that. I'm not buying granola bars. I'm not buying the healthy crackers. Like we just can't. It's too expensive. And so we do make crackers from time to time, but I find that crackers, for the amount of time you put into it, like they're not as easy as making, we'll do granola bars all the time. I've got little granola bar molds. They're so easy. Again, you like mix them together and dump them in the molds and you've got great granola bars. Like my kids can make them. Like I said, muffins, there's so many things that you can make so that if you have an allergy, if you've got allergies, stop buying the processed stuff because the processed allergy-free stuff is so expensive. And then half the time, the other ingredients in them are not actually even that healthy. It's not like these are like the healthiest thing you could ever buy. And so that's definitely a huge sacrifice. So I want to encourage you, like, start thinking through, you don't have to ditch it and start making everything from scratch all of a sudden, but start thinking through what's my biggest pain point? What am I really struggling with these allergies that I'm trying to buy? And what could I slowly start looking at swapping out like one new thing? Like I'm going to stop buying these processed, these allergy-free granola bars. I'm going to learn how to make my own. Start doing that. Give that a few weeks. Figure out, buy the molds, figure out how to do it, get that into a good rhythm, and then say, okay, my kids really love these crackers. Costco's got these great like almond crackers. I actually really like them, but they're so, like, for my family, they would be so expensive, and I've got friends who only have like 1 or 2 children, and they buy those almond crackers because they last a lot longer. So for them, yes, they're more expensive, but they last so long that it doesn't make the same difference, right? For me, I'd have to buy like 3 boxes and they would still be gone right away, like as a snack, right? So for me, those aren't worth buying. So we do make crackers from time to time. And so if your kids love crackers, crackers really are just not actually that hard to make. You can make crackers pretty easily. You spread them out, you cut them apart. They're really not hard. You can make some really incredible crackers. Our favorite ones are homemade. They're so good. But figure out one good cracker recipe, get those down and make a batch every week. Like there's some really simple things you can do. And I know a lot of times when I talk about figuring out how to make these from scratch, people assume that you're making really hard, complicated things and you're in the kitchen for 50 hours a day. And it's not true. I can make 4 dozen muffins like while I'm just making breakfast on Monday morning or Saturday morning. You can whip up a couple dozen muffins. You can really figure out easy things to do. And that's what I do. I do all easy stuff. I do I think with my cookbooks, people sometimes assume I'm like this gourmet chef, and I don't. I make really simple, easy stuff. And yet it makes a big difference. It makes a really big difference. If I were to go buy the equivalent of all this, if I were to, instead of making the snacks at home, if I had to go buy them, our grocery budget would be astronomical. And part of that's hard because we do have a large family. So all those extra kids, and we have a lot of boys, so they do eat a lot. Whereas these whole grain, awesome muffins keep them full. There's so much fiber and protein in them. It keeps them full, and they're just happy. They're happy. Whereas even the processed snacks, like they eat through them and then they're hungry 5 minutes later. Okay, this one totally goes along the same lines. Rebecca said, working mom with busy kids, I'm tired of buying terrible snacks for convenience. Well, and I was just saying that too. Like these convenience snacks too, they don't fill them up. My kids could eat like an entire container of goldfish crackers. I mean, don't get me wrong. I actually personally love goldfish crackers. I'm a 90s kid. I just love them. I'll sit and eat the box, but there's no nutritional value and there's nothing that's going to fill them up. So if they have a bag of fishy crackers, like, great, what's that going to do? They're going to be starving again in 3 seconds. Like it really doesn't, you're just eating a lot more snacks then. That's what I find when we've got more processed snacks. If we're on a road trip where I end up just buying chips and crackers and things, they don't do anything. They taste good for a moment and yet you're still super hungry. And so what I would encourage you is pick, we just talked about, start finding a few recipes that you can do that well. It's not going to work well if next week you're like, I've never made anything homemade and I'm going to make 30 new things. No, you're going to pick like one new thing. I'm going to learn how to make muffins. Muffins. I'm telling you, muffins. Or granola bars. Or, there's so many different great things that you can make. I'm going to learn how to make those. And then I'm going to make one thing at a time. I'm going to give myself like a month. I'm still going to buy 3/4 of the junk food I was buying. Then I'm going to learn to make one thing. I'm just going to let that go for like a month because we're really busy. I'm going to do that for like a month. Then I'm going to get that down and I can make muffins in my sleep. Like once you learn how to do something, you guys, it's not hard anymore. It's the mental process of trying to figure it out. So don't try to take on making crackers and muffins and granola bars when you've never made them before. It's going to feel really hard and then you'll never do it again. Pick one, get into the rhythm, get used to it, and then next month, pick your next item and slowly incorporate. In 3 or 4 months, all of a sudden, you're making everything at home for those snacks. You're not buying them. So do one thing at a time. And then I would set aside once a week where you've got a little bit of extra time. Friday night, Saturday morning, Sunday evening, whatever that is, or set aside a night where you don't have activities going on, Tuesday night, and just spend 1 hour. 1 hour in the kitchen. You could easily make 4 dozen muffins, a set of granola bars, or two batches of granola bars, and get like overnight oats ready for the next day. With 1 hour, you can absolutely do all those. And so I would encourage you, find 1 hour in your week where you can do that. I mean, that takes the place of heading to the grocery store, right? Find 1 hour that you can make all of these for the week ahead. And once you get into that good rhythm of, oh, I just know how to make these, I don't have to figure all the things out. Then that with that 1 hour a week, you just really get into that rhythm. And I think a big part of it is just getting into the rhythm. When I get out of the rhythm of, say, making bread, it's way harder. Like I've got to figure out when to do it and get back into it. But when it's just your regular weekly rhythm of I put bread up Sunday night, I bake it Monday morning, it becomes second nature. So that's what you want to do with a lot of this stuff. When you are trying to find ways to make more at home from scratch, then it's all about the rhythm. It's all, I really think it's like 100% about the rhythm and knowing the recipes. Really knowing the recipes for sure. Okay, one more. Packing lunches for school and breakfast is where I spend the most. So yeah, this one's super hard. I think, again, you can get really, really simple. We're very simple with breakfast. I know that one gal I was talking about on Instagram, she serves very elaborate breakfast, which, I mean, they look amazing. But we do really simple. We don't have the time either. We do really simple breakfast. We're always in our homeschool routine in the morning. We don't have a ton of time. Even though we're home, we don't have time to do super elaborate breakfasts. So just look at some ways that you can simplify breakfast. Breakfast does not cost us very much. We're pretty simple. We'll do different kinds of oatmeal. We do a lot of oatmeal. We'll do eggs. I'll make homemade bagels every once in a while, which, again, homemade bagels sound overwhelming, but I will make like 50 at once and then you freeze them. So like once a month, once every 2 months. And we don't always have bagels, but when I am like, oh, I'm going to make bagels, I will make a mega batch, put them in the freezer, and then you can just pull them out when you need them. So, and then we do love waffles. And again, I will make like mega batches of waffles when I do it. So once a month, maybe we'll do a bunch of waffles and then stick those in the freezer. And then those are easy breakfasts too. The kids can pull those out. The kids know how to make oatmeal on their own. The older ones all know how to make eggs on their own. So they can kind of just pull stuff out then and cook it. And so we really don't spend a ton on breakfast, but we're not super fancy either, but it works. But when you've got a homemade bagel with some eggs, you don't need anything fancy, right? And then, yeah, obviously with packing lunches too, just get really creative with what you're putting in there. If you're spending, I imagine you're probably spending a lot on snacks that you're putting in there. So you can get creative with what you're putting in. Focus on like cheese and nuts. I know some schools you probably can't bring any nuts. But you can make granola bars, you can make muffins, here I am talking about these again. You can get really, really creative with the things that you put in the school lunches as well. That doesn't have to be, I think it's when you're just buying everything for it that probably gets really, really expensive. All right, so I am pretty much out of time now. My aunt and my cousins want to go shopping. Jason said he'll watch the kids for the afternoon while we go do that, which is really fun. I love this time getting to spend with them. So I'm going to just stop there. Actually, I would say a good 80% of my questions were about how to cut out more processed foods because I think so many of us are more health conscious now. We're realizing the ingredients that are in there. And I also think so many of us are really struggling with how expensive the convenience foods are right now. So the thing is, we were talking about the very beginning about manufacturing, every touch point that an item has is going to increase the price. So if you've just got dry rice, the farmers got a little bit of a markup, and then like the third party repackagers got a markup. But like your basic ingredients, rice, beans, these sorts of things, flour even, yeah, they're going to go up a little bit in price the last 2 years, but they're not going up 50%. The items that have flour from one farm and one repackager, that's got sugar from another, that's got other vegetables, your frozen foods or your convenience foods or your processed snacks, all those things, they're going to have many touch points. So every step along the way, inflation is hitting it. And so your packaged things, all of a sudden you're like, why is that $7 more than it was a year ago or 3 weeks ago? And so those are where I think a lot of people are really starting to struggle, because those prices are going up an astronomical amount as well. So I think a lot of people are realizing for health reasons and budget reasons that I need to figure out kind of how to do more things from scratch. So I really want to encourage you, coming from a cook who didn't know how to cook at all in marriage, to a cook in my early wifehood who thought I was making meals, but I really was just putting together different like ingredients. Like, I would buy like spaghetti sauce from the store, and like I was making spaghetti. Well, I was kind of just putting together a couple different, processed things into it together, to then realizing, oh, you can make spaghetti sauce. And it's really easy, and it's really amazing, and it doesn't have sugar, and it doesn't have high fructose corn syrup. And you're like, oh, I can just make spaghetti sauce, and it's really easy. And so wherever you're at in that process, I know it can feel really overwhelming, because that's been my life the last 15 years. But I really want to encourage you, focus on simple things. A lot of times I really struggled for a while trying to figure out what should look like for my family, because I would run into one of two things. I would run in, first of all, to cookbooks that were like healthy, quote, I'm doing air quotes. You guys can't see me. Air quote healthy, but they were like the fad kind of healthy, where it would be like books from like the 90s and the 80s that talked about like everything just needs to be low fat, and then they'd have all this other crap in the recipes, and you're like, this is not healthy at all. The other thing you run into, which I think is more prevalent today, is you find cookbooks that are healthy and they look great, and then they're ridiculously complicated. It's 90% salads, and then even the salads are hard to put together. And then the recipes are like gourmet, crazy. I mean, they probably look delicious, but there's no way you can pull it off in normal life. Like it's ridiculous. And so those are the two ditches you find, and it can be really hard to just find simple foods. So my last encouragement for you is to look at the foods that your family currently eats and figure out replacements for those. So if your family does a lot of spaghetti, and right now you're buying white flour noodles and like jars of spaghetti from the store, and you're like, we do spaghetti once a week. Well, you don't have to throw out your spaghetti to find some like vegan meal. No, just learn how to make it, research ways that you can buy some better quality noodles. There's some really good noodles out there now, you guys. Long gone are the days where whole wheat equals disgusting cardboard. You can find some really great ones. We order all of our extra noodles like that. If I don't make them, I order them from Azure. But you can find so many great ones out there. If you have allergies, you can find brown rice noodles that are fantastic. There are some good options. So research the noodles. The noodles are going to cost you a little bit more. But then learn how to make your own spaghetti sauce from scratch. And over time, you save money not buying the processed version that has more crap in it. And so some of the stuff starts to equal out. Sometimes you have to spend a little bit more on an item like the noodles. And sometimes you save, like making the spaghetti sauce. Now, you can just make the spaghetti sauce and still use white noodles. You can really, make this work for your family. Another one we absolutely love. Okay, let's say that your husband loves biscuits and gravy. Okay, that's a big one. But you're using like canned gravy, or you're using like Bisquick for your biscuits, and you're like, oh, well, we're trying to be healthy. We can't have biscuits and gravy anymore. No, that's completely wrong. Learn how to make biscuits and gravy from scratch. We make incredible spelt biscuits. We will also sometimes just do white flour biscuits, but when you're making it from scratch, it's only a couple ingredients. It's still whole foods, right? But you can make really, really great biscuits, and then learn how to make gravy yourself. You can make an awesome gravy that's actually healthy, that's got nothing bad in it. And homemade biscuits and gravy is absolutely incredible. And it doesn't take that long to make. It's actually a pretty quick dinner. We always do it for dinner. I never do. Biscuits and gravy is too much for breakfast. It's too much work and we love it. And I'll make a side of eggs. We love doing that for dinner. So really look for what are these meals that you're already eating and figure out how to make those healthy. That's what we do 99% of the time. Like that's what my meals are. They're really simple. They're hearty, down to earth foods, but just figure out, look for recipes that are easy switches. All right. Okay. Well, I guess I should tell you guys, I didn't even tell you this in the announcements, that our bookstore is open right now. So I actually do have several cookbooks. Cookbook Volume 1 is basically going to teach you everything we talked about today. So if you go to findingjoybookstore.com, our bookstore is open through March 6th. And then it'll be open again for like a summer shop opening. It'll probably be an early summer shop opening. But if you go there, you can check out my different cookbooks. But Cookbook Volume 1 is teaching you learning how to cook from scratch out of a bulk pantry. You don't have to buy stuff in bulk, but it's just referring to how do you take dried beans and what do you do with them? I had no idea what to do with those 10 years ago. I was like, how do people buy dried beans? Like, what do you do with them? How do you cook them? How do you make biscuits and gravy is in that cookbook. My spaghetti sauce is in that cookbook. And muffins, there's a whole section on muffins, my granola bars. I mean, everything I talked about, because these are literally the foods we eat every day. Waffles are in there. Overnight oats are in there. I didn't do that on purpose. Those are just literally the foods that we eat every single day, week in, week out. So if you're really struggling with this and you're like, that sounds fun, but I don't know what to do with this, head on over to findingjoybookstore.com. You can check it out. We've got our bookstores there. They're in print right now. So you can order the print version. You also get the free PDF. So as soon as you check out, it'll take a week or two to get your print copy, but you'll get the digital copy emailed to you immediately. So you can start reading through it. It's half guide and it's half recipes. So the first half is all teaching. It's teaching all of this stuff. And then the second half is recipes, which is really cool. All right. So go check it out. findingjoybookstore.com. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much for tuning in with me today. Don't forget to check out that bookstore opening through March 6th. We also have our new secret project launching March 11th. I'll be back next week with lots of details for you. I'll see if I can get Jason to join me on the podcast. We can talk about it. That would be really fun. And then you can check out our two sponsors for today's episode. We have happymammoth.com where you can get hormone stuff. Use promo code HOME at checkout. And we also have Air Doctor. You can get up to 39% off your Air Doctor. Just go to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code HOME at checkout. All right, ladies, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys back here next week for the next episode.